Hello, thank you so much for attending. Sorry for the technical difficulties. So today we're going to talk about a practical way to turn survey purchase intent into more realistic estimates for actual sales. And so why do we need to do that in the first place? What really matters is our ability to understand the level to which an experiential campaign is creating some kind of positive movement through the purchase cycle. And at PortMA, we work on that all the time across campaigns, across industry, to figure out what's working before we have to wait for that Catalina data or that Nielsen data or the actual sales data from the coupons. And when we can know in almost real time what's delivering that impact, it gives us much more power to adjust things. If you wait for the actual sales data, you're 3 months down the road when it comes available, and you can't do a whole lot with it. So because the activation's ended. So we got to find a way to predict that. And there are ways of doing it. There are actually ways of predicting the future. And I've got to say, I'm fascinated by numbers for that very reason. The ability to predict the future is power. And it starts with this basic idea that anything in the known universe can be counted, right? You might say, well, there's certain things that are too abstract to count. But if you were talking about like maybe something very abstract would be how much two people are in love, let's say, for example. It's too abstract to possibly measure. But if you operationalize it in a way that is measurable, then all of a sudden you can obviously measure it. So if we were to define love as the number of minutes they hold hands walking through the park every morning on their way to work, now we have some kind of measure. And looking at that number of minutes measure over time, we might be able to see an ebb and flow of their affection for each other, and in doing so, have some kind of metric that's a leading indicator of what may be the nature of their relationship. And so anything that in the universe can be counted, and you just need to add that element of it being defined in a way that's countable. Now, anything that's counted can be graphed if you use that element of time. So you can start to look at what does that graph look like over time of this type of behavior? And then graphs, by their very nature, will reveal patterns, especially graphs of human behavior, because we're social animals. We act in ways that are very similar. It's the reason why a retail store can buy 50,000 blue T-shirts and know they're going to sell them, because there are patterns that tie us all together. And when we graph human behavior, those patterns will reveal themselves. And then patterns, by their very nature, allow us to predict the future. And that simply, with this approach, allows us to understand and take advantage of the fact that the best predictor of the future is the past. And so we're going to use that to our advantage to solve this problem of getting information about what are the actual behaviors of folks based on what they told us they were going to do at the event. So many marketing programs will rely on survey intent to estimate results. But that raw intent is often overestimated. People will say they're doing certain things, but they won't actually do it. So we'll put together a short, we've put together a short guide that you can download that will allow you to see everything we're talking about, and even giving you access to a spreadsheet to do these calculations on your own. You can go to portma.net/adjusting, and I believe that's going to be in the comments below as well. And you can use that to access this guide, as well as a spreadsheet that you can use for all these adjustments that we're talking about. Let's look at the difference between purchase intent and real-world behavior to start things off. So to frame the discussion, we'll start with the relationship between purchase intent and people actually buying. It's, like I said, purchase intent is this helpful signal, but it's not the same as actual purchase behavior. And because of that, we need to do some kind of adjustments. There's interesting how well what we say we're going to do actually predicts what we do. It varies a lot by industry, and it varies by the product category more than the industry. So if we're talking about durable goods, we're talking about high ticket items, our communicated intent will oftentimes correlate more highly with our actual behavior. If we're talking about low ticket items, or things that are purchased frequently, we tend to be a little more fickle. We tend to not be as accurate in doing what we say we're going to do. So if I was saying to you I was going to buy a Mercedes in the next 5 years, that communicated intent, whether it be a survey or otherwise, correlates much higher than me saying I'm going to buy a bag of Fritos potato chips next time I'm grocery shopping, because that's more. There's more purchases. There's more opportunity for experimentation. There's less accuracy. So when we're looking at purchase intent, we're often getting it from survey data itself, and we got to have consistent findings in market research well, let me rephrase that. We're going to get it from survey data, and market research is going to give us the ability to get that. But that will allow us to start to quantify what that intent is, so that so we can start to manage this over purchasing. So consumers will tell us if they'll buy. They'll tell us if they won't buy or how likely they are to buy. The gap between that stated and actual behavior, that becomes a problem for us because it inflates our performance. It inflates the outcome that we're saying is happening. And because of this, we work to translate that difference. How do we get a realistic estimate from that purchase intent? Now, this isn't a flaw in the research. There are ways for us to control for this error. All research has different degrees of error because it's human-based and humans are not perfect. But the important thing is that this error is consistent. And so when we know that it's consistent, because it's consistent, we can do things to manage it. This is not a new problem. The industry's had this problem for a while, and they've found ways to address it. It's recognized our purchase intent as an overstatement is common and is recognized across the research that people do. There are different simulated test models, so simulated test market models, or STMs, that are the ways researchers make these adjustments so they can start to rely on that purchase data to show actual, or that purchase intent data to show actual purchase. And one of the more popular ones is called the basis modeling. It's been around for quite a while. It was put together by Mr. Lin. It was first created in '77. At the time, he was working with Pillsbury, and that's kind of inspired his approach. And the key premise was that consumers tend to overstate intent. They do so consistently, and that allows us to correct for it. So using that same principle, we can, in the same stuff that Mr. Lin put together in '77, we can use that to the adjustment that we need to do here when we're looking at our survey data coming out of experiential engagements. I think it's important to mention that this is not something that PortMA always did. Like, we've been modeling these kinds of things at PortMA for experiential for about 17 years or so, working on our 17th year. But we didn't used to do it this way. We used to just look at purchase intent and look at the number of people that we're talking to, and then translate that into a potential number of new customers. And we didn't have these adjustment figures historically. And we got called out for it. We got called out for it by a brand team that really knew what they were doing. And they asked some really good questions, and we had a lot of rich discussions after it. The PortMA team learned a lot. This was thankfully about 12, 13 years ago. And we adjusted to include the basis modeling in how we approach our understanding of actual behavior, and that has made a huge difference. I think one of the things that I hope you're going to get from this discussion is to not get caught like we got caught, to not have that same challenge that we had. So the first step is to know what are the number of people you're getting to that are non-customers. And the reason why we focus on non-customers is because at any event, you're going to have a mixture of people that buy the brand and people that don't buy the brand. And the people that already buy the brand before they engaged you, there's a high likelihood that they're still going to buy it. Most brands are delivering on their brand promise, and so they have some level of loyalty. And if you count the sales from those current customers as coming from you, then you're overstating. And so you really got to be looking at non-customers to start with. There's some exceptions to that. So if you're working in a product category that incremental consumption is reasonable, or you're promoting new usage occasions, those kinds of things, then there's different ways to model incremental gain from current customers that you engaged. But unless that's a core part of what you're trying to do in your marketing, you've really got to start with the non-customers. You've got to find that count of non-customers. There's ways of doing that, and we'd be happy to talk to you about that. It usually starts with a question about awareness and past usage experience. That is actually can be one very tight question in your exit survey. Once you have that count of non-customers, then you're going to apply a 5-point scale that is going to give you that purchase distribution. That 5-point scale it's really important that it is a traditional Likert scale, because the modeling that you'll use in BASES requires that it has a one-to-one, apples-to-apples comparison between how you measured their intent and how BASES will help you translate that into actual behavior. It's a definitely would to definitely would not type of scale. So how likely are you to purchase brand X the next time you're shopping for Kleenex, for example, or shopping for bathroom tissue? And you'll have a 5 is definitely would, a 4 is probably will, or definitely will, probably will. Might or might not is your neutral middle category. Probably will not, definitely will not are your bottom 2 categories. And that 5-point with a neutral middle matters, and you want to make sure you're using that. Now, if you didn't use that, and you want to use the tools that you can get at that link, portma.net/adjusting, we can help you recode your data in some ways. There's methods of managing, in many cases, different scales to convert them into other scales. But it's difficult, and you're introducing new layers of error, so it's best to do it right from the beginning. So once you have that, then you're going to have the percentages at each of those levels. You're going to have like 40% say they definitely will buy, 20% said they probably will buy. You might have the rest are in the might or might not, definitely will not or probably will not. And with each of those percentages, you can now start to apply a standard industry conversion rate. So of those that said they definitely would, what percent actually do? And of those that said they probably would, what percent actually do? And when you model that in a simple spreadsheet, you're going to finish with an overall percent. It ends up being a weight of those 5 individual measures. You'll get an overall percent of the population of the people that you engaged that are actually going to do what they say they're going to do. And that may be 20%, it could be 60%, it could be 45%. It varies quite a bit depending on the distribution of your own data and the distribution of the data from that particular event or that particular campaign. But once you have it, you can get those translation rates down and really understand that conversion factor. And with that conversion factor, you can now apply it to your ROI models and have a very accurate measure of the actual outcome of what you're doing. And whether you're looking at that as an ROI, as we're big fans of here at PortMA, or whether you're looking at that as simply a consumer conversion number, and even just kind of looking at conversion rates as you segment by different types of activations or venue types or markets even, then you're going to get that explanatory power that you need to understand what is outperforming. Are you performing better when you're activating at retail in the morning or in the afternoon? Are your community events doing better than your street intercepts? Are you converting better at state fairs than you are at music festivals? So those kinds of adjustments are everything, and you need to get those kinds of adjustment factors in it so that you can make those changes to the program that are going to maximize the value for the brand you're serving. So to run the calculator, you get those number of non-customers, you got that 5-point Likert scale, and you get those matching scale labels. You have that purchase intent data, and then you have that percent distribution at each of those purchase intent levels. So whether it's a definitely will not or a definitely would, you know the percent at each of those. So the important note here is that scale and label, they must align so the adjustment factors will apply correctly. So where do these predicted purchase rates actually come from? Well, they're powerful, and they come from diary research. They come from market researchers that are asking people to tell us in survey research what they plan to do. And then they are actually looking at their actual behaviors and what they actually do. So they're saying, how likely are you to buy this bathroom tissue the next time you're shopping for how much you to buy this brand of bathroom tissue next time you're shopping for household goods. They get a measure of that, and then they get a measure of what they actually did down the road through those diary studies, and they just do that millions of times. And over time, there start to become these standard conversion rates at each of those levels. And when you know those, you can very easily apply them to the work that you're doing to get that information itself. And we've got those conversion rates in the spreadsheet. And if you go to that PortMA.net/adjusting, you're going to be able to not only get the guide, but connect with us so we can get you that spreadsheet as well. And once you have those conversion rates, there's really no end to what you can do. So once you calculate the adjustment factor and you apply it to your marketing analysis, you're going to have that accurate information. It can be applied to any of the benchmarks that we have, so that you can look at like the average purchase behaviors at state fairs for non-alcoholic beverage, for example. And then you can use this information this modeling to then apply the adjustment to know what was the actual purchase coming out of that. And you can use your own survey data, you can use our benchmarks, you can use past survey data, or you can do it on data that you have collected through other sources. So if you'd like to try the calculator yourself, you can get it via the link that we provided, PortMA.net/adjusting. I think it's also going to be down in the comments. And I'd say but you can also do your own research and get those numbers, and you should quickly be able to figure out how to translate what they said they were going to do with what they actually did and get some more accurate data. So thank you so much. I'm really glad you took some of your lunch to hear this through. I hope it added some value for you. I hope you're walking away with something that you can do to avoid the trouble that we got ourselves in a little over a decade ago. But also giving you some firepower to report back to the brands, or if you're the brand team, to report back to your VP and show them why this experiential is actually working, and how with these kinds of adjustments you are able to model the performance of experiential just like you do for any other marketing channel. And in doing so, experiential has its rightful place within your marketing mix. So thank you so much. So my name is Chris Clegg, and I am with Portland Marketing Analytics. If you're interested in learning more about us, you can go to PortMA.com. But if nothing else, get that free guide for yourself at PortMA.net/adjusting. Okay, thank you so much. Enjoy your lunch. Take care.